We hope to make this an interactive space, so please feel free to use the chat box to introduce yourself along with your organization and the location you're joining from. You may also use the chat for any questions or thoughts that you have as we go along. While the chat introduction comes in, moving on, as temperature continues to rise across India, we are seeing increasing risks and challenges for communities, especially outdoor workers, elderly, children, and those with existing health condition. Today's session is designed as a space for us to come together, learn from each other, and explore practical ways to strengthen resilience at community level. Before we move to our session, many of you may already know. Sumitra, can you move to the next slide? Many of you may already be familiar with Community Action Collab, but for those who are new, let me just share a quick overview of CAC. CAC is a dynamic network that brings together diverse stakeholders, including civil society organizations, the private sector, social enterprises, and government partners to build resilience for vulnerable community and community-based organizations. One of the key ways of how we do this is through our Know Your Resilience tool under the broader resilience movement. At CAC, we work across key areas such as livelihoods, health, social protection, climate action, along with coalition and alliances that respond not only to emergencies but also to long-term challenges. Just to give you a sense of the scale of this network, we are a community of around 400 members and we have collectively reached around 15 million people, and we actively engage with 6 key coalitions. We'd be happy to share more about this with anyone who is interested post this session. Our broader mission is to build resilience for 10 million individuals and strengthen 100 community-focused institutions. If you'd like to know more or join our network, please do visit our website and follow us on social media. The details are available on your screen currently. Okay, moving on to today's session, we'll be focusing on a few key areas. We'll start by understanding the heat events and vulnerabilities, then explore practical preparedness measures that can be implemented at community level. We'll also create a space to share experiences and challenges from field and finally reflect on how we can strengthen our collective response to heat waves. It's now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Nitishri from Swasti, who will take us through the heat wave advisory. She brings in extensive experience in community health and has been closely working on strengthening health systems and responses for vulnerable population. Over to you, Dr. Nitishri.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today's session. So I'm Dr. Nitishri, and our today's session is going to be on summer well-being, as we are experiencing very hot summer in recent times. And I'm very sure everybody is going to accept with me on this fact that these days it's just feeling way too hot. It's not how it used to feel 10 years back or 15 years back. If you are also accepting with me on this, you can give me a thumbs up. Let me see how many thumbs up I'm getting. Yeah. So many are accepting. Okay, many are accepting with me on this. I see so many thumbs up in my screen. So before going on to the preventive and protective measures, let us understand extreme heat isn't just uncomfortable. It's going to affect us in so many different ways. It is affecting our health. It's affecting our livelihoods. Many people are tending to lose. Somebody has raised their hands missing. Many people are losing their work because of this, just because they cannot be productive as usual. There is income loss. No, there's increase in medical expenditure because of all these health impacts. So it's not something that has to be taken very lightly. And that is why in today's session, we will look at some key takeaways that we can incorporate in our daily lives to ensure that we stay safe during this period. So, but before going into the protective measures, let us get a basic understanding about these extreme heat events. The next slide, please. So we have the slide before this. So we must have seen in newspapers and television that the government has announced a heat wave alert. So now let's understand what is a heat. Heat wave is basically days when the temperature is going to be very high compared to what we can normally expect in that specific location. And IMD also has certain criteria for it. For example, if it's going to be a coastal region, greater than 37 degrees Celsius is not normal. Similarly, if it's a hilly region, greater than 30 degrees Celsius is not normal. And when it's going to be a plain, greater than 40 degrees is not normal. So when both of these criteria is met, a heat wave alert is put. It's declared that it's a heat wave. And because of climate change and global warming, This intensity and frequency of these extremely hot days are just becoming higher and higher day by day. And this is even more problematic in regions where the humidity level is going to be high. For example, in the coastal regions, because of the higher humidity level, the amount of heat it feels for us is going to be very high when compared to the temperature alone. For example, if you look at the image here, temperature could be not the temperature reading could be just 32 degrees Celsius. But when the region's humidity level is going to be around 70%, it's going to feel like a 41 degrees Celsius, which is way too high. Imagine the difference it is making from 32 degrees Celsius to 41 degrees Celsius. And that is why, while we're looking at these weather updates before planning ahead our day or anything else, any other activities, it is important that we do not just look at the temperature values and also look something called as the heat index. The next slide, please. So we need to account for heat index as well, where even humidity is being accounted for. For example, this is a screenshot from the IMD's Monster mobile app. This is something that I checked last night. So the temperature reading shows 31.3 degrees Celsius, and because of the humidity is around 63%, it feels like 36.4 degrees Celsius. There is almost 4 degrees Celsius increase in the temperature. That's how hot my body is going to feel. So you can also check, you can download this app and check it for your specific location and even put it in the chat section below. But in the interest of time, I'm just going ahead with the other slides, but simultaneously, I can do this. The next slide, please. And it is also important that we share all this information to other friends and family members around us to ensure they also stay informed and stay safe. Now, let's understand who are the specific individuals around us, be it our family members, our relatives, or within our own homes who require some specific, some extra attention and care to make sure that they stay safe during this period. We need to remember three things. The first one is whoever whose immunity is going to be compromised or whose immune system is just developing, or if their body is undergoing some kind of stress or their body is already compromised. For example, people with underlying health conditions, diabetes, heart problem, hypertension, or any other immune problems, all of these people are going to be extra vulnerable. Similarly, children, pregnant women, elderly, because they come up with a physiological stress, added physiological stress. And second is people who spend a lot of time outdoors under the sun. All of these outdoor workers, daily wage workers, street vendors, farmers, fisher folks, because of their increased exposure to extreme heat, they have an added vulnerability. And then third would be the people who have less access to information and less access to resources to keep themselves safe. Just because we sit in a room with a fan above our head, it doesn't mean everybody else has this privilege, right? So all of these socioeconomically disadvantaged group will also be vulnerable. So it doesn't just mean only these people are going to be affected. These people are at the front lines of being affected. They could be affected very easily. And that is why it is our responsibility to identify these people around us, at least our close ones, and ensure they stay safe. They stay informed and stay safe during these extremely hot periods. Next slide, please. Okay, now let's understand about heat-related illnesses, why it is occurring, what are the different heat-related illnesses, and what are the specific protective and preventive measures we need to keep in mind. So first, see, why is the body overheating? There are certain internal processes normally happening in a body, right? No food is getting digested, all the different organs are working, we give work for our muscles. All of these internal processes generate heat normally. And then comes the external environment. The temperature around could be very high. The humidity level could be very high. And there could be a poor airflow, no breeze at all. So when this internal, no, when this along with this internal process, when this external factor is going to come into the place, this is going to result in increased body heating. And now what happens? What does a body do immediately to cool itself down? I'm very sure everybody must have noticed sweating. Once we are in a very hot environment, we start sweating immediately to cool our body. So why does sweating happen and what is the mechanism behind it? So once we start sweating, the sweat on a body surface evaporates. This forms an evaporative cooling mechanism. And because of this evaporation, the body naturally cools itself down. And along with sweating, there are other mechanisms also happening in the body. There is expanding of blood vessels, reduced metabolism, increased respiration. But despite all of these measures, the next thing, but despite all of these measures, When the temperature is going to be very high, greater than 35 degrees Celsius and above, the body will still struggle to cool itself down. And that is where heat related illnesses happen. The next slide. So, heat related illnesses is a spectrum of illnesses. There could be certain mild illnesses, then there are moderate illnesses, and there are certain severe life threatening conditions. So, it is important for us to understand which are the symptoms that could be considered as mild and treated at home first, and then which are the ones which require immediate medical attention, where you need to go to the hospital immediately. And it is also important that we do not take these milder symptoms very lightly. No, just because they are mild, if you still know, if you just do some home remedies and keep sitting at home, there's a very high chance it could aggravate and escalate into something more serious, something more life threatening. So it is important, when you see it keeps persisting for more than 2 or 3 days, or when you see added symptoms along with this, it is important that you go to the hospital immediately. So these would be the milder symptoms. We feel excessive thirst, we keep sweating a lot. We also experience heat rashes. We see these small pimples or blisters, or the skin turns red, especially in your neck region, your back regions, your private areas, or your skin fold, armpits. So heat rashes is one of the milder symptoms. And then heat cramps. When you do excessive physical activity when it's very hot, along with sweating, you lose a lot of electrolytes, and that is why your muscle gets fatigued. We experience this muscle pain. There's pain. Sometimes we experience cramps in our stomach region or our arms, the thigh region, the calf muscles. You experience muscle cramps. Some people also experience nosebleeds. We feel weak, we feel dizzy, sometimes even like vomiting. So all of these would be the milder symptoms which you can treat at home initially and then go to the hospital if it still persists. And then comes the severe symptoms. The next slide. And then comes the severe symptoms which requires immediate medical attention. For example, the person might appear to be very confused, like he or she has an altered mental state, he or she might not be able to respond properly. And there is very high body temperature, greater than 40 degrees Celsius or greater than 104 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you see, the person might have a very high breathing pattern, rapid breathing pattern, and a rapid heartbeat. And sometimes you see the person has stopped sweating completely and no urine for so many hours together. All these are signs that the body has tried so much to cool itself down and it has failed. Because of which all of the different organ systems are failing, they're compromised and are started to shut down. So this is why, just because all of the organs are getting involved, heat-related illnesses is life-threatening and you need to take immediate medical attention. The next slide, please. So when you put up all of these symptoms under different buckets or different illnesses, we get a spectrum of illnesses, right from milder ones like dehydration, heat rash, heat edema, heat cramps, and then there's a moderate one, heat exhaustion, and then the severe life-threatening one, heat stroke. In the interest of time, I'm not going to the details of each of this. Next slide, please. But this PPT would be shared with all of you all, so you can read through this. I mean, all of the details. The next slide, one. So you can read through all of these when you'll get access to this slide. But it's important for us to remember what exactly we need to do when we come across someone struggling with heat stress. Suppose somebody has fainted, when you're outside somewhere. So what should you do immediately? There is something called a triple R approach by UNICEF. So triple R approach means there are three different R's. The first R is reducing the temperature. So how do we reduce the temperature? So if we immediately move the person from under the sun to a cooler place, a shaded place, or an indoor environment, and then we loosen their clothing. Suppose if they're wearing too many excess clothing, we remove some excessive clothing, loosen their buttons so that they get good amount of air. And then we can also place wet cloth that is soaked in cool water around their head, around their neck, their armpits, the private areas, and then fan them. Maybe if you have, you can use a fan, or else you can just manually fan them. So because of this evaporative cooling that we saw with sweating, because of the same mechanism, this will reduce their body temperature. And then when it's going to be very small infants like young children, just because they're small, do not immerse them in a bucket of very cold water. This could be very dangerous. Again, even if they're going to be young children, you need to use the same technique of using the wet cloth around their body surfaces. And another thing to remember is, especially without a doctor's advice, do not give them paracetamol, thinking it will reduce the temperature. Because fever is something different from heat stress, and paracetamol might not be helpful in this situation. So by the time you go somewhere and get a paracetamol, give it to them. Do not waste the time. And instead of that, you can do the other measures that we are recommending that would be very much effective in reducing their body temperature. And then after doing this, you need to ensure that you rehydrate them. If they are conscious, give them water to drink or ORS to drink. And do not ask them to drink large portions at once. Ask them to drink it little by little every 5 minutes so that it gets absorbed by their body effectively. And it's also important that you do not give it to somebody who is not conscious, because there are chances it might lead to choking and it becomes an even more dangerous situation. And when the affected person is going to be a 6-month-old infant, it is not advised to give them water to drink. No, you should encourage the mother to drink enough water and ask the mother to breastfeed them. And then the third R is remind. Once you have reduced the temperature, once you have rehydrated, the person is going to start feeling better. So once the person starts feeling better, make them aware what are the symptoms they experience, educate them about heat stress, and recommend them measures to keep their environment and body cool and to prevent something like this from happening again in the future. But if you see that the condition hasn't improved, that they are still facing certain symptoms, immediately take them to the hospital. The next slide, please. Now let's look at some general care that we need to keep in mind, irrespective of the illnesses. These would be protective measures that we need to incorporate in our everyday routine. So first, it is important to take a healthy diet. So everything that is hydrating, all the hydrating fruits, all the hydrating vegetables can be included in the diet. And it's not going to be anything fancy at all. Everything that is locally and seasonally available should be helpful here. All the local foods, vegetables, the fruits, like we easily get watermelon available, amla, mangoes, and all the different vegetables. And also during summer, we easily get tender coconut available, sugarcane juice, lime juice. And usually we also have certain specific dishes that we do at home during summer. For example, people make something with moong dal, and there are various dishes that you do with ragi. We also start drinking buttermilk. No, we put ginger, curry leaves, do some tempering and have it as a drink. There is lassi very easily available. And I also asked the participants, you can share it in the chat section below. If you like to share any specific local foods or local recipes, so that everybody else also gets to try something different this season. And along with all of these local foods, it is important that you do not, take all these packaged juices, packaged beverages, which is going to have a lot of sugar in them. This lot of sugar content, every other food which is going to have a high sugar content, it's going to make you dehydrated even more. It is not going to be helpful at that point. And also these fried foods, salty foods dehydrate you even more. And then the coffee, tea, alcohol. Again, coffee contains a lot of caffeine, which dehydrates you even more. So make sure you do not add all of these food in your diet because it's going to make the condition even more problematic. The next slide, please. Okay. And it doesn't just stop with our physical health. Our mental health also gets affected in so many different ways. Sometimes we see little signs here and there, but we tend to take it very lightly. We do not put a lot of attention to our emotional well being. But it is very important that we do not do that and take care of our emotional health as well. Indulge in self care, whatever that we saw so far, indulge in all of these self care measures. Make yourself feel very good. Do all of these calming activities, any kind of hobby or any kind of interaction with friends or family members or inside your office spaces, whatever is going to make you feel good. And in instances where you are consistently feeling sad or consistently feeling some kind of mental pressure, it is important that you seek medical help. If you already know a doctor, you can go consult him. Or if not, you can contact the National Mental Health Helpline anyways, the Telemanas helpline, which is 14416. The next slide, please. It is always advised not to go out during the peak hours, that is the 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. But when it's going to be unavoidable, it is important that we take with us certain protective measures. For example, wear very light breathable clothing, like cotton clothing, and ensure you carry your umbrella with you, carry a cap with you, and also carry water bottles with you and all the hydrating foods or hydrating drinks, all that you need to carry with yourself. And you can also carry a fan with you. And suppose if the environment where you're going is going to be very much polluted, make sure you carry a mask with you. And while traveling or while doing some kind of work outdoors, if you start feeling sick, it is important you stop whatever you're doing, take some rest under some shade or indoor environment, drink water, And if you're still feeling sick, please ensure you share this information to somebody at home or to your friend, to make sure that you get some help to reach back home safely. The next slide, please. And as we did come across ORS then and there to stay hydrated, the previous slide, it is important we make the right choices. So whenever you're buying ORS packets, remember, make sure that you notice whether it is written based on WHO formula. Because there are these other sachets like ORSL, which could be misleading. People could consider that to be an ORS. They are drinks which has a very high sugar content in them. And it's not going to be helpful in these situations. It will make you even more dehydrated because of the high sugar content. So make sure you make the right choices. The next slide. And in instances where you're not getting access to these ORS sachets, it is there is another method which even WHO recommends. You can easily make it by yourself. This is an alternative in scenarios where you're not getting access. Something is going to be helpful when nothing is there in place, right? So how do we make this ORS by ourselves? We need 6 teaspoons of sugar, half a teaspoon of salt, dissolve it in 1 liter of drinking water, that is one full bottle of water, and drink it little by little. The next slide. And it's not just going to be with the outdoor environment. Our indoor environment also needs to be in a very cool state. So when we are going to be inside our homes, closing all the windows and just using the fans might not be helpful. So when the temperature is going to be very high, for example, greater than 35 degrees Celsius, just using the fan will cause the hot air to keep circulating inside the room, which is going to make the condition worse. That is why it is important you open the windows. You can use a curtain to block the sunlight, but you open the windows to get some good ventilation. And then these days you also get these natural screens, these made of different herbs like vetiver or even straw, which you can use as curtains, which is going to block the sunlight. And you can spray water on it because of this evaporative cooling, the technique that we saw with sweating. This evaporative cooling is going to reduce the internal temperature. We can also use vessels filled with water inside our rooms. Again, the evaporative cooling mechanism comes into play here. And another technique known to be very helpful is painting our roofs with white color, especially in homes where there's going to be tin roofing or any metal roofing, which will make the internal temperature very high. So when you paint it white, the sunlight gets reflected and the internal environment feels a little more cooler. The next slide, please. And it doesn't just stop with us. It is important that we take care of the animals around us, be it our pets or any cattle or other livestock. It is important they have proper sheds, with proper ventilation or proper curtains, and they should have access to clean water and also nutritious food so that they stay healthy during these periods. And when it is going to be cattle, it is important we do not make them work outside under the sun, during the peak hours. It's important that we give importance to their well-being as well. The next slide. And similarly with the crops as well. So there are different crops and there are different techniques. There's some techniques called mulching, using sprinklers, using a very consistent watering routine. So there are different techniques which varies depending on the crop variant and the specific growth stage of the crop. So whoever is responsible for this field, farm, or gardens, it is important to know that you are aware, stay informed of all these techniques and incorporate it in your routine so that you ensure that your plants also stay safe during these periods. The next slide. So with this, we have come to the end of the session. So one thing I would like to emphasize is it is important that we do not always self-diagnose us, self-medicate us with some home remedies and stay at home. It is important we always reach out to the hospital and get medical attention. If you are in regions where you do not have easy access to a health facility, you can always contact health workers like ASHAs, ANM, or Anganwadi workers. And everything that we saw so far, you can read more on this on the advisory note that Sweti has prepared along with the other partners on heat wave. So it is a comprehensive booklet around 20 to 30 pages where all these details are mentioned. It could be if you all are communities, if you all are organizations working with communities, it could also be shared with the community members as an IEC material. And it can also be shared among field workers so that they can use it as a job aid while working outside. They can use it to take measures to protect themselves and also to make sure that they are putting out reliable and accurate information to the communities. So it is available in different languages: English, Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, Kannada. And if required, we can also work on translating them in other languages. And we also have this one pager, which could be used as a poster. And I get the next slide. And Sumitra,
We
the
can,
slide isn't
yeah.
visible. And this could be easily accessible from Swesti's website. So, swesti.org, when you go inside the website, you should see a knowledge base section. Within the knowledge base section, you could see a resources section within which both of these materials can be easily downloaded. Sumitra, the slide isn't visible.
Okay. Thank you,
Over to
Nitya.
you,
I will
Vedika.
share. I'll share, Sumitra.
Yeah.
Give me a minute.
So thank you, Nitya. So this was basically, we've collated all this information and we've put it into one job aid that can be circulated among the communities and different organizations. I would like to take the opportunity to also share that at Swasti and at Community Action Collab, we would like to provide technical support to the organizations. I did see a message from Virtually that you would like to know what all can be done during a heat wave. So we have all that kind of information and we have all those kind of facilities. So we would like to collaborate and we would like to reach out to you if on how to collaborate. It can be just translating the material. For example, we collaborated with another organization in Maharashtra to translate our guides into Marathi. We can also provide capacity building sessions for the organizations so that the field workers can then further take the information forward to the community. So there are a lot of possibilities in which we can work. What I'm trying to say is we are not promoting a one size for all problems, but we are ready to work with you and figure out a solution that is right for you and your community. Over to you, Nitya.
Sorry. Thank you so much, Vedika and Nitishi, for that insightful. And I think this is all something that we have all been discussing and all, something that we have all been facing. But yeah, thank you for sharing light on how we can prevent it and what are the steps that we can take to overcome it. Give me a minute. I'm just looking. So yeah, we'll now open the floor for any questions that you may have for Dr. Nitishri and Vedika. I'll share the questions in the chat, or you may please feel free to raise your hands. And yes, Chris, I see you have a question. I'm going to, yeah, go ahead. Chris, do you have, I see your hand is raised. You can unmute yourself and speak. You're on mute.
If you are speaking, you are mute.
Okay, while Chris comes in, do we have any other questions for Nitishri? Any thoughts? Any such? I see quite a few thoughts in such in the chat. Is
Yeah,
there
so
any?
there's one question on while making ORS, any other alternative to white sugar? So ideally, white sugar is the best one to use because of the glucose content in it. But if white sugar is not available, you can also opt for jaggery as the last option. Yes, and for babies, do not use honey for babies. It's not advisable.
Any other questions?
Akhilji, I would love to, get in touch with you after this session to discuss how we can, work together to for your community in Gadchiroli. So some of the options that have come, for what we can have during summers is millet pudding and water rice, fermented rice, drink made using wood apple. That's a new one for us. Another suggestion is distributing buttermilk in front of our, they're already doing it. They're distributing buttermilk in front of their office in Villupuram based on the instructions by the higher officials. That is great. So there's one comment by Anand Krishna on that he wouldn't recommend using plastic sheets as most of the plastic disintegrates in the soil and leads to microplastics and their potential to enter both in the soil and the food system. So this is something that we can take into consideration and make changes in the guide.
Vedika, there's also a question from Jyoti Rajivan. She was asking, they work with children with disabilities. They were telling that extreme heat is always affecting them very badly, and they're living in the slum areas and limited. What any suggestions for them? Any precautionary measures that you can suggest for the community?
For slum areas, because we have to look always at ventilation and making sure because the exposure to heat is also high. So there again, hydration and other things have to be taken into consideration, and then special attention has to be given to hydration and ventilation at home also. So I don't have a tailor-made answer for you, but I can connect with you separately to figure out what exactly can be suggested for children with disabilities and people living in the slums.
Thank you, Vedika. We also have another question. It's from Anand was asking, can we get heat stroke if we are directly exposed to barefoot in the fields? If we walk barefoot in the field, if we are we directly exposed to heat stroke?
See, getting any heat-related illness is a factor of how much exposure is there to heat. So I wouldn't say that going bare feet will definitely get you a heat stroke or will not get you a heat stroke. It's basically how hydrated or dehydrated your body is. And definitely, if you are roaming around bare feet, your body is absorbing the heat because the kind of heat that we are facing on a regular basis, even if you touch the floor, even if you stand on the floor, you can see how hot the floor is. So definitely it is impacting the overall hydration of your body.
Very happy to see questions coming. Maybe we can move on to the next question. Where we can,
Sure.
Kentar Kumar was asking, what is the difference between heat exhaustion and heat stroke?
I will put that question up for Nitish. You want to come in here?
Yes, Pavika. Nitya, can you just repeat the question again? I mean, I just missed it out.
The question was difference between heat stroke and heat exhaustion.
Okay. So we did have specific details about the same in our PPT. Just because of the time constraints, I couldn't go into the details. But something small which I can put, something very crisp which I can put across here is remember anything which is going to anybody where they are experiencing all of these severe symptoms. It is important that you think it's going to be a heat stroke. For example, they would have a very high body temperature greater than 40 degrees Celsius. They might stop sweating completely, even no urine output for several hours, and their mental condition might seem to be very altered. No, you try asking them some questions, they might not respond clearly. All these are important signs that you need to keep in mind because the other symptoms could also be associated, but you do not see all of these signs. In heat exhaustion, the temperature is below 40 degrees Celsius, their mental status is normal, and you do not see these other severe symptoms like reduced sweating or no sweating at all, and including no urine output for several hours. So these would be the important signs where you differentiate heat exhaustion and heat stroke. But again, do not take heat exhaustion also very lightly. Go to the hospital immediately so that it doesn't escalate into a more threatening situation.
That is clear, Sukhet. Any following questions, do let us know. Meanwhile, I'm going to the next question. Anand has another question. He was asking if avoiding sunburns, coconut oil should be used before or after to avoid sunburns.
So I would say it does not avoid, like prevent sunburn. It will help you moisturize your skin, but do not apply it on fresh, hot or red sun, like fresh burns, because it can also trap heat. So maybe when you're going out or when you've come back, you can apply the oil. It does not prevent sunburns.
Thank you, Vedika. Another question is from Ashish has asked for any specific veggies and fruits that can be used during heat waves. And he has also said that onions can help to fight the heat waves. It's very common practice in North India. So any recommendation there,
Yes,
Vedika?
onions are definitely helpful during heat waves. Fruits and veggies, whatever is locally available, and especially fruits and vegetables which help you keep, which help you, which have high water content. So, the ones that will help you keep hydrated. So those are the ones. I'm not going to go into examples because for different regions there will be different fruits and vegetables. Over
Thank
to you,
you.
Nick.
Thank you, Vedika. I think this question is for Dr. Nitishri. Kamala Ishwar is asking for heat stroke cases, is first aid enough or is it necessary to take the person to the hospital? That's the first
No.
question. The second question is in emergencies, how can people from villages and interior places be transported to hospitals? That's a follow-up question. Nitishri, over to you.
So again, since we kept repeating that heat stroke is a medical emergency, it has to be considered as a life-threatening condition and immediately take that person to the hospital. No, but until and unless you're traveling to the hospital or the ambulance comes to your place, you can go ahead with these first aid measures like reducing the temperature, or rehydrating. If they are conscious, only when they're conscious, you should give them water to drink. So you can do all of these measures until and unless you're getting some help. But it is always recommended to go to the hospital immediately and get medical help. And then in villages and interior places, again, when you do not have easy access to hospitals, get immediate help. Inform any health worker who is readily available within your communities. Usually in these places, you can find ASHA workers, Anganwadi workers, ANMs, within their own communities. So inform them immediately, get their help, and check with them how do you take this person immediately to the hospital. Or by the time we do that, what are the measures that we could do for the affected person to make them feel even more better? And on the question, what do we do if somebody faints in the heat? That is why, again, this triple R approach that we spoke of, that would be the first aid measure to anybody who's facing any kind of heat stress. So once the person faints, reduce the temperature, take them to an indoor environment or take them under the shade. Reduce the temperature by using these wet cloth that is soaked in water, put it around their head, put it around their neck, other body folds like armpits or on the private area, so that it will reduce the temperature, fan them continuously. And if they are conscious, give them water to drink, ORS to drink. And then if they're still not feeling better, take them to the hospital.
Okay. Thank you, Nitishi. This is another, I think, interesting question. A person is suffering from heat stroke when he already has like a kidney infection and which restricts the water consumption. So, what should they consume or what they shouldn't is the question that Yasmin has asked.
As we did see in the call, everybody with some kind of chronic conditions, be it a kidney condition or heart problem, diabetes, all of these people are going to be extra vulnerable to being affected during these heat waves or these extremely hot days. So, since they are extra vulnerable, whenever you notice some small signs, do not just consider heat stroke. Even if it's going to be very small signs and symptoms, take them to the hospital immediately. Check with the doctor who regularly prescribes you the medicines for all of these conditions as to how else you need to take care of yourself since you're reducing their water consumption. So that would be helpful in this case. It is important that you check with your doctor on specific measures that you need to take up with. And do not, wait until heat stroke or very serious symptoms. Even milder symptoms like seeing edema, seeing swelling in the feet and ankles, or just dehydration, or the person has fainted one day suddenly. All of these milder symptoms also you need to immediately go to the hospital and check with the doctor who you usually see for your underlying medical conditions. Yeah.
Another question we've got. I'm very happy that we are getting questions, but maybe we'll take few more questions and then wrap up considering the time. The next question is from Balaji Rao. He has asked, what are sustainable upgrades in building, rooftop or inside households that can be implemented for decreasing the house temperature? I think this is something that Nitishri had already said, coloring, giving the house a lighter shade and all that. But over to you, Nitishri, if you have to add any other points.
Yeah. So it is important there is good ventilation in the house. We have these structures like windows or other places, where there is exhaust fan or any kind of structures within the house that is going to improve the ventilation. There's good amount airflow inside. And again, when we are building homes, it is important we do not use materials like metal or some kind of tin material for the roofing. And it couldn't be avoidable in places where they are going to be socioeconomically disadvantaged. But still, if that is the case, you can find other alternatives like painting the roof with white paint or whitewashing it, which is going to reduce the internal temperature. So these would be the some of the sustainable upgrades which I could recommend right now. But I think you can check with people who are experts in these fields, architects and other people. They might be aware of more sustainable things that we can add in our home structures to ensure that the temperature inside the home keeps cool.
Thank you, Nitishri. Next question is from Yasmin again. Yasmin has asked, their region is tribal dominated society. Practice of consuming millet drinks are common. So can these people consume millet is her question.
So I think everything that is locally available and seasonally available or traditionally that people usually consume in that region is going to be healthy. And I'm unsure right now of the specific things about millets and all of that. But all of these foods that are locally available are definitely healthy and hydrating. And along with these local foods, you can also include the other vegetables and other drinks that we recommended during this session. Drink a good amount of water, include all the other hydrating foods also, along with these millet recipes that we usually do.
Thanks, Tishi. Suryabali has asked, Sattu lassi is consumed in summer in eastern UP, and does that help with heat stroke?
Yeah, lassi
I'll
is a very yeah, yes, maybe.
Sattu and both lassi. Sattu is also because it gives you a lot of fluid, salt, and electrolytes, and plus energy. So Sattu and the lassi will be is a very good solution for hydration. So, and because again, as Nityashri said, it's locally available. So it is. I mean, you should definitely have it.
Renuka, that is something we can consider. We can see how we can bring Nitishri and Vedika based on their bandwidth and availability. I think we can do a training on field. Kindly, I think you can connect with us later and we'll see how we can organize that. Shouldn't be an issue. Maybe we'll take this last question and then wrap it up. Vedika, Ashish has asked about drinking tea. He's asking if that's a myth. If गर्मी को गर्मी मरती है, so is that a myth or?
So it has to be consumed. It's drinking tea is not a problem, but again, please remember that it has caffeine. So caffeine dehydrates you. So it has to be consumed in a moderate amount. And also, like if you're drinking tea, just make sure you're drinking enough water after that, or having enough hydrated fruit, like fruits with fruits and vegetables with high water content after that, so that your body stays hydrated. And of course, moderation for caffeine is very important.
Okay, taking into consideration the time constraint that we have, if there are no other questions, can we wrap this up? And I'm sure the discussion is not going to end here. Any questions, any queries, or any suggestions that you have, feel free to share with us, and we would be more than happy to address it and take it forward. So, for now, thank you everyone for this insightful discussion. It was quite good, strong questions that we have got, and I'm hoping that we were able to address most of it at least. And as we close, I want to reiterate heat resilience is not just a seasonal response. It is very critical and it's an ongoing public health priority. It's simple preventive actions taken at the community level that can significantly reduce risk and protect the most vulnerable. Once again, I'd like to thank Vedika and Dr. Nitishri for sharing their knowledge and grounding this discussion in practical realities. A special thanks to all of the wonderful audience that we have had. It was such an engaging and thoughtful group that we had today. Your insights and experience have truly enriched our conversation today. Also, if today's conversation resonated with you and if you'd like to explore any collaboration, co create a session, or share any community practices on climate health initiatives or any other resilience focused initiatives, we would be more than happy to connect with you, and you may reach out to us directly or drop your interest in the chat. We'd encourage you to stay connected with us, continue share your learnings, and take forward some of the ideas discussed today into your communities and programs. So thank you so much for joining, everyone. Hoping to see you in our future sessions as well. We will be sharing the presentation, and heat advisory is available on our website. So we'll be sharing links to the heat advisory as well as the presentation today post this call. Thank you so much once again for joining.